very few discoveries in science are made by accident. Much less the kinds of discoveries that lead to Nobel Prizes. Instead, scientific progress is typically hard-won through years of commitment, incremental research, and investment. But in 1978, the Nobel Committee flew in the face of convention and awarded that year's prize in physics to two men whose groundbreaking discovery was something of a fluke. It was in the early 1960s in the small town of Homedale, New Jersey, that the stage was set for the most fortuitous of discoveries, for it was there that the company Bell Labs had constructed a 20-foot, horn-shaped antenna. Just a few years after the Great Horn was built, a new satellite system usurped the original, rendering the instrument obsolete. But Bell Labs didn't let their gigantic hearing aid go to waste. Instead, they opened it up to researchers Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, who planned to tune into and analyze the radio signals coming from the space between galaxies. However, when they began their observations, the two astronomers struggled to make out the signal above a low but persistent radio hiss. They checked it wasn't coming from nearby New York City or from local military installations. They confirmed it wasn't coming from any particular part of the Milky Way or outside of it, but rather it seemed to be coming from the entire sky. And so, for this noise to appear so consistent and omnidirectional, the researchers concluded it must be due to some error within the instrument. And indeed, when they inspected the antenna, they found it to be home to a number of roosting pigeons. Perhaps their droppings, what they described as a white dielectric material, was giving off heat that was creating the noise. After several failed attempts to humanely rehome the birds, the researchers resorted to more drastic measures and eventually cleared the horn of both pigeon and droppings. And yet, the hissing still remained. Penzias and Wilson had eliminated all possible sources of error in their instrument, and so, as a last resort, began to entertain the notion that this radio noise could, in fact, be coming from the entire sky. They reached out to a fellow astronomer at Princeton University, Robert Dicke, for advice. And it was Dicke who solved the mystery, in the biggest way possible. And so a decade later, it was the two Bell Lab researchers who were awarded the Nobel Prize for the discovery of the so-called cosmic microwave background, and not Robert Dicke. Regardless of who was credited for finding or figuring out the cosmic microwave background, and despite Dicke's cyclical fireball model being later ruled out, its detection represented a major turning point for our understanding of the Big Bang. The discovery of this red-shifted fireball glow, now stretched out to be just 2.7 degrees above absolute zero, is conclusive evidence that the universe did in fact start out in a hot, dense state. Even though it dates to a moment some 380,000 years after that moment of cosmological creation,